Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the Oppo Files, American Bridges podcast, where we take you into our opposition research vault to look at all the crazy things that Republicans running for office are saying and doing. I'm your host this week, Kate Demchuk, Digital Director. We're going to talk about my absolute favorite Commonwealth. I was born and raised in Northeast Philly, worked on a couple of PA Senate races, so I know what I'm doing here, hopefully. We're going to bring in a couple experts to help us out here, though. So we got Aiden Johnson, who's Deputy Press Secretary of Campaigns, and Kennedy Honig, who is State-Level Research Associate. So welcome, guys. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Kate.
So I want to start us off with the quintessential Pennsylvania icebreaker, Wawa or Sheetz?
Gonna have to go with Wawa for sure.
I'm also going to go with Wawa. Yeah.
Wow, we got a team 3 of Wawa here. I'm very excited. I was in Wawa territory the past few days and maybe went there twice a day to stock up on all of the things. So very excited to hear Team Wawa. So let's get into it. Obviously, there's a lot of issues on the ballot this midterm election. One of the ones that we want to talk about specifically in this episode is climate change and the environment. So, Aiden, I'm just going to kick it to you. Do any of these Republicans running for Senate actually believe in climate change?
The short answer, no. In reality, everybody, whether it be Ted Budd, whether it be, Rojo, the incumbents running, or it be, some of the newer candidates such as Blake Masters in Arizona or Herschel Walker in Georgia, all of them have, come out against, for example, the Inflation Reduction Act, which had, $240 million for water infrastructure. And they've come out against the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Herschel Walker famously said, why do we need more trees?
Don't we actually have that on video? Should we take a look?
They continue to try to fool you like they're helping you out, but they're not. They're not helping you out because a lot of the money is going into trees. You know that, don't you? It's going into trees. We got enough trees. Don't we have enough trees around here?
Well, it's tough to hear, but it's not surprising. These Republicans are just voting and denying climate change. It's not even surprising anymore how anti-climate change and anti-environment they are and how vocal they are about it.
I mean, how can you even say we have enough trees? Is that even possible?
Walker's definitely not the only one. Rojo has said, climate change is bullshit, essentially. Even, the quote unquote, whatever, head of the party right now, Trump, has famously said that, the rising sea levels aren't a big deal because it'll just give you more seafront property, which is, I guess maybe good for, his property in Florida, but for probably, most of the country, that's not something they're looking forward to.
The oceans may rise over the next 300 years, 1/100th of an inch, giving you slightly more seafront property.
Oceans rising. Of course, that's a good thing. Obviously, Democrats have been doing the best that they can to combat climate change and come out with some good initiatives, Inflation Reduction Act being one of them. Aiden, what do our Senate Republicans think about that?
Basically, every single Republican running in the Senate right now has come out against the Inflation Reduction Act, including Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania. And, that bill, I think it's basically the most aggressive action in the history that we've taken to combat the existential threat of climate change. It strengthens our energy sector. It creates a lot of great manufacturing jobs for solar panels and wind turbines and electric vehicles. And all of that is made in America, and it's going to be made by American workers. So this is really historic legislation that every single Republican running for Senate has come out against.
And I know clean water in particular is very important in Pennsylvania. So I'm sure they are not pleased that the Republican running for Senate, Mehmet Oz, opposes this, doesn't believe in climate change, wants to outsource jobs. Aiden, what can you tell us about Mehmet Oz?
Well, where to begin? Well, first off, Mehmet Oz is, obviously he's a carpetbagger. He's actually from New Jersey. He was born in Ohio, raised in Delaware. He likes to say that he's from just south of Philly. But, in reality, he's lived in a $3 million New Jersey mansion for, basically the past decade. In fact, he's done a lot of tours of his mansion. back when he was just a celebrity doctor.
Oh, wow, very casual columns.
Everybody has their, room dedicated to their grand piano. Actually, in his study, so on the campaign trail, Oz actually cut an ad basically from this study, and the Fetterman campaign pointed out that the bookcase behind him was the same bookcase from his New Jersey mansion. So even when he's been campaigning in Pennsylvania, he's still been, living in his New Jersey mansion.
I think that's the biggest insult to Pennsylvanians, is running for office from New Jersey.
Just casually has a basketball court in his house.
Right.
I'm sure all of his constituents as well have just basketball courts in their $3 million mansions.
Very
Totally
relatable.
normal, just your average American right there.
And this is one of his dozen houses?
Yeah, he has, anywhere from 10 to 12 properties in Florida, in Turkey, in New Jersey. He has, I think it's only one home in Pennsylvania that he famously bought for about $1. And he's also getting a massive tax break on that property, which is, completely undeserved. And it's just another way that, multimillionaires taking advantage of the tax system to make more money for themselves and to enrich themselves.
And his Pennsylvania home might be one of the newest.
Yeah, that's the most recent one, especially because he didn't even vote in Pennsylvania up until, I think it was the 2020 election. So
Crazy. Aiden, didn't Mehmet Oz actually present at the New Jersey Hall of Fame?
yeah, this happened in 2019, and it was kind of a gathering of, I guess, all the celebrities in the Garden State, and they were honoring a bunch of their most distinguished citizens. And Oz was somebody who showed up for that event, and he actually presented an award to Martha Stewart, which was pretty hilarious. There's some great clips basically bragging about being from New Jersey and how proud he is that he's a Garden Stater.
How does it feel to be at this wonderful event, being a presenter?
Well, I'm from New Jersey. I appreciate all that our state offers. I mean, you can take folks who made big, coming from the state, you want to celebrate them because we're all about resilience and people have bounced around and they know how to take a joke. It's classic New Jersey.
Classic New Jersey.
Classic New Jersey.
He also, in there, he also, I don't think we have this, but he said that he kind of hinted that he too one day would like to be inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. It's something that I think a number of New Jersey Democrats and the Fetterman campaign have been, petitioning to get him on there.
Well, I wish them the best of luck.
And yeah, I'm sure most of us know how Dr. Oz had his TV show back in the day, but he's such a quack doctor. He's promoted miracle weight loss drugs. He was pushing hydroxychloroquine, and a British medical journal published a study that showed the accuracy of recommendations made by Oz found that they could only find evidence for, I think it was 46% of his medical recommendations. The study found that the medical evidence actually contradicted his recommendations 15% of the time, and there was no support at all for his claims 39% of the time.
That is crazy. Aiden, I know he's peddled some dietary supplements as well.
Yeah, he's peddled quite a few, and he's actually, profited off of them. Personally, that's, one of the main reasons why he's promoted these dietary supplements, basically on his website, on his TV show. But yeah, he is a big participant in multi-level marketing schemes and scams. Usana Health is probably one of the most well-known ones. This was a Chinese skincare pyramid scheme, and he promoted their products a bunch of times on his show.
I think we actually have an ad, yeah.
I have teamed up with USANA for over a decade to journey around the world, seeking out the very best science to help you live better and longer. USANA's global effort to seek out health solutions knows no bounds. We visited Singapore, Thailand, Korea, Vietnam, Turkey, Mexico, and China. I had a chance to study with world-renowned traditional Chinese medicine doctors.
Welcome to our pharmacy.
And wherever we went, we were given exclusive access. And I'm noticing as she's pulling herbs out, these drawers are deep. Now I'm back where treasured ancient wisdom is being harnessed using the latest in science and technology. Here, intensive research into the power of ancient herbs and tinctures has led to the development of countless nutritional supplements, skincare, and food products to better your life. After all my travels with USANA, it's now time to put the knowledge into action. Let's see how ancient Eastern wisdom can be even more potent when we use Western technology.
And there you have it. Yeah.
That was tough to watch without cringing.
Yeah, and so that's just one of the many, pyramid schemes that Oz has been involved in.
And doesn't he claim that he's taken on Big Pharma?
Yeah, that's one of his favorite lines that he likes to use on the campaign trail. But he's actually, been paid. They've paid him millions over the years. And this is one of the many issues that he's kind of flip-flopped on. Not only has they given him tons of money, but he's personally invested, up to, I think it's $700,000 in a lot of these, big pharma corporations that he says are responsible for hurting Americans, and keeping insulin prices high. He's a scam artist. He's a complete fraud, and he has, there's no way that he should be anywhere close to winning this Senate seat.
Kennedy, I'm sure you've seen some of these many flip-flops of Dr. Oz in your research. Do you want to tell us about any of them?
Oz claims he's so anti-China, but has had a ton of his products made there. His books, his merchandise, sleep products.
We actually have a TikTok of some of his China products if we want to show that.
We have to be America first to push back on China. Welcome, I'm Dr. Mehmet Oz. I want to introduce a better way to sleep with cutting-edge technology that's proven to keep your family sleeping cleaner and healthier. Dr. Oz Good Life Sleep System offers your family a first-ever science-based environment for optimal rest and recovery.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I'd be buying that sleep system. Kennedy, what about you?
Not at all. He's such a hypocrite.
What are some of these other flip-flops?
He also has claimed that he's very anti-big tech, but again, has invested in tech. In reality, he's invested millions of dollars in Google, Amazon, Apple, you name it. Also, on abortion rights, he's much more extreme than when he was just on TV as a doctor. When he was on TV as a doctor, he acknowledged the dangers of restricting access to abortion and tapped into his medical background to justify his reasoning. In 2019, he defended Roe v. Wade, saying he did not want to interfere with the woman's ability to family plan. But since then, he said he's supported the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, and he's jumped to the right for primary voters and now is stuck with these pro-life positions for the remainder of his campaign.
And I think we have video of Dr. Oz flip-flopping on abortion, too.
I'm pro-life. I don't want to interfere with everyone else's stuff. I'm at a personal level, I wouldn't want anyone in my family to have an abortion, but I don't want to interfere with everyone else's stuff because it's hard enough to get into life as it is.
Do you believe Roe v. Wade should be overturned?
I'm pro-life. I'm okay with the Supreme Court making the right decision.
Aiden, obviously abortion is top of mind for a lot of these Pennsylvania voters. What do you think's going on here?
Definitely. And it's not, recently, I think it was 2 weeks back, Lindsey Graham basically introduced a national abortion ban. He said that this is something that Republicans are, definitely going to vote on if they take control of the Senate in November. And Oz has been incredibly cagey about whether or not he would, be a shoo-in for this bill. But he's been very clear. He's said I'm 100% pro-life. He said that abortion is murder. And since then he's tried to cover up and hide the fact that he is somebody who's going to sign on to this Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham national abortion ban. So he's incredibly dangerous. And this is just another way that he's basically tried to reinvent himself on the campaign trail. And it's truly disgusting and totally unfit for office.
Outside of abortion, obviously healthcare in general is the top issue for Pennsylvania voters. Has Mehmet Oz said where he stands on the Affordable Care Act?
So Senate candidate Oz actually bashed the Affordable Care Act, saying it missed the mark. But as a doctor, Oz supported and participated in outreach efforts for the ACA. He stated that 50 million Americans had no health coverage before Obamacare and was supportive of it when he was a doctor, but not now as a candidate.
I think we actually have footage of him praising the ACA from way back when.
That's funny. You say Obamacare is a lot of care.
It's a lot of care, actually.
Watch out behind you.
For over 50 million Americans that had nothing before. It's a lot of care.
Yeah, and on the campaign trail, his campaign has now said that if Oz was the senator, then he would have never voted for that bill. He would have never voted for the Affordable Care Act, which, as he claimed, brought healthcare to 50 million Americans.
That's absolutely crazy. It just seems like he keeps jumping to the right as he becomes a Senate candidate. Has he weighed in on climate change and gone to the right on that too?
Yeah, he has. He's become a climate denier. He declared that carbon dioxide was not a climate problem because it accounted for just a small fraction of the air in Earth's atmosphere. And that's a long time talking point of climate deniers. I think he's also said that he was against certain efforts to make energy efficient vehicles more accessible. And that's one of the main ways that we're going to transition to cleaner economy and to make sure that we combat climate change going into the future.
That is wild for somebody who studied science for so long to come out against it in so many ways as a candidate. Kennedy, has he talked at all about where he stands on the 2020 election, which is even just a crazy sentence to ask?
Yes, he claimed that there definitely was widespread fraud in the 2020 election, and he blamed it on absentee ballots, Democrats, and voter ID laws, and he's actually supported legislation that would make it even harder to vote.
That is absolutely bananas. I mean, I think we all know that Pennsylvania played a huge part in the 2020 election, and if somebody like Oz were representing it in government, I would be concerned.
Definitely.
But I bet I'm not the only Pennsylvanian concerned about electing Mehmet Oz to the Senate. So we're going to kick it to Ian, our Director of Polling and Analytics, to give us the lowdown on what Pennsylvanians really think. Hey, Ian, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, you're not the only one. You're not the only Pennsylvanian that doesn't like Dr. Oz. A majority of Pennsylvanians don't like Dr. Oz. According to YouGov's latest poll, up to 53% of Pennsylvanians have an unfavorable view of the Republican nominee.
I bet that's because he's from New Jersey.
Yeah, maybe it's because he's from New Jersey. Maybe he's just a horrible candidate. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But yeah, so even in the American Bridge actually did some research in the western part of the state recently, which is much more conservative, about plus 12 towards Donald Trump, and he's still heavily underwater in that area of the state,
Wow.
which is going to be necessary to carry him to a victory here. So yeah, you are definitely not the only Pennsylvanian that does not like Dr. Oz. With that being said, his race against Fetterman is close, but in Pennsylvania, it's one of the only battlegrounds where we have Democrats that are consistently above the win numbers in most polls, above 50%. So Fetterman leads Dr. Oz by 52%, according to that same YouGov poll. 52 to 47%, sorry, not leading by 52%. And in the governor's race, Shapiro is leading Mastriano 55 to 44%. Again, we are in September, closing in on the November election date where folks are going to actually start paying a lot more attention. And that kind of leads us into the issues and the battleground of messaging that's going to be happening here, coming in these last couple of weeks where millions of dollars are going to be spent to trying to galvanize these voters.
Yeah, we spent the beginning of the podcast talking about climate change and environment as one of the top issues, but I'm sure it's not the only one.
For sure, not the only one. And there's a bunch of issues, right? We consistently see in polling that the economy is top of mind for these folks, right? Like they're worried about how they're going to fill up their cars with gas and eat food. And that's obvious. But with that kind of table setting, the economy is not the only issue. And there's a lot of issues that specifically galvanize Democrat or Republican voters. So while we have Joe Biden passing the IRA and other policies to try to curb that inflation, curb these gas prices heading into November, voters have an eye towards the abortion as an issue, and they do not trust Oz or Mastriano on this issue, right? 84% of voters believe that Mastriano would restrict abortion access, which is an insane number. I had to double check myself to make sure that 84% was correct, because you don't usually see polls where 84% of anybody agree on anything, right? That's not a common thing in this polarized country we have here. But with that being said, when you look at who abortion access moves, 55% of them say that overturning Roe v. Wade makes them more likely to turn out to the polls, while 80%, we're seeing that 80% number again, 80% of Republicans say that that decision won't move them at all. And they're split between more or less likely to vote, right? So we have a galvanized Democratic base. We already have these folks in the lead. If we can curb the economic woes and push eyes towards how bad Mastriana and Oz will both be on abortion, we're going to do well for ourselves in November.
Thanks, Ian.
No problem.
Obviously, the math doesn't lie. Abortion is one of the top issues for Pennsylvanians. And, you know, Republicans are just wildly out of step with the majority of Americans on this. Kennedy, can you tell me, you know, what Doug Mastriano thinks about abortion rights? Because he would be in charge of the entire state if he were elected.
Definitely. Mastriano has extremely anti-choice views. He's constantly said that banning abortion is the most important issue of our lifetime. But around April, he removed his views and stopped talking about his extreme anti-choice beliefs, especially after the reversal of Roe v. Wade. But the past few weeks, he's began talking about his anti-abortion beliefs again. He just last week attended the March for Life at the Capitol in Harrisburg, and said during a conference call that he looked forward to signing a fetal heartbeat bill, which would ban abortion at 6 weeks, which, like you said, Kate, is a reality given that both the state Senate and the House are currently controlled by Republicans.
You know, Mastriano basically fully supported the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe. There's only 16% of Pennsylvanians supported that decision. And as you said, he's promised to sign this, you know, incredibly extreme abortion ban that could even outlaw some forms of birth control. You know, not only that, but he was the lead sponsor on a heartbeat bill that would have banned abortion at 6 weeks. So not only has he promised to sign one, but as a state senator, he's already introduced one. So he's just completely unfit for office.
And he supports this ban with no exceptions for rape or incest or for the life of the mother.
So I look forward to signing into law, you know, either Stephanie Borwitz's heartbeat bill or the fetal pain bill that's also in the House. But we got to do something.
We got to do something. It's crazy. Most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. That's got to be one of the more restrictive abortion bills in the country and would absolutely devastate Pennsylvanians. With Roe being overturned, it's just even more impactful at the state level. And if we let Republicans win these governorships with these anti-abortion stances, we're just ripping away fundamental rights of Americans. And that's not even the most extreme thing about him. I can't even tell you how many of my family members have called me after seeing this ad on TV showing Doug Mastriano at January 6th. Not only does he support the insurrection, he was there participating in it.
Yeah, he was there. You know, Mastriano is actually one of the 6 people who were subpoenaed for efforts to send false slates of electors to Washington. He was there on January 6th. He was there to try and overturn the election. And, you know, he was recorded crossing a police line and standing on the northwest lawn of the Capitol.
And this guy wants to run Pennsylvania. Kennedy, what do you think about that?
I just think that after 2 years, that the fact that he's still talking about the 2020 election and claiming fraud, and that he so proudly tried to overturn votes in Pennsylvania working with Rudy Giuliani, that he's not fit to run the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania at all.
He was there, but he also spent $3,000 of his campaign cash to send supporters to the Capitol on January 6th. This, you know, was something that he pulled out of his own campaign, money that he spent to buy buses and to get more people to the Capitol on that day.
Yet he continues to run away from reporters who try to ask him about it. And I think we actually have footage of him doing so.
Would you be looking to relitigate the 2020 election? Senator, can you tell me why you think people would need to?
And there he goes.
It's the slow door close in the reporter's face that really gets me.
No, thank you.
No.
He's always avoiding the press and media that doesn't agree with his extreme right-wing agenda.
Mastriano has claimed, a number of times that he never went beyond the police lines. But there's recordings of him crossing the police lines as rioters, threw police barricades to the side. He claimed that he doesn't condone, the violence at the Capitol, but he, as I said, used campaign funds to pay for rioters to travel to the Capitol, one of whom was later arrested for having a firearm.
Okay, I just wanted to make a quick video for those of you that were having difficulty spotting Mastriano and his wife, Rebby, in the video from the insurrection. Quickly, let's just remember Mastriano that day was wearing a scarf, a black shirt, and this navy blue hat with a pretty big emblem on the front. So that makes it easier to spot him in the video. Okay. So this we can clearly see is Rebby. She has on black and white plaid sleeves, a black hat, and a black vest. So we just kind of watched the video and I paused it a lot. So here we can see Rebby again. And then back here you can clearly see Doug's navy blue hat with the emblem on the front. He's following her. Here again, we get a better look at him. It's still a little bit blurry, but we can clearly identify him by what he was photographed wearing that day. The scarf, black shirt, and the hat. Rebby's still up here. You can clearly see that it is chaos happening. Okay, here's Doug here walking through the barricades. Rebby is right here. You can see her plaid, Doug's hat and scarf following behind. And again, there they are walking through. Obviously, these have been torn down by the insurrectionists. He knew what was going on and he was involved. I'd say this is pretty damning evidence.
So Kennedy, tell us what's going on with this footage we have of Doug crossing the police barricade.
So Mastriano acknowledged that he was at January 6th, but said he was just there to peacefully protest. But in reality, there's footage of him crossing police barricades, which isn't very pro-police or backing the blue of him. He was seen storming through the barricades that were thrown to the side with his consultant, Jeremy Oliver, and his wife was there as well with him that day.
And this guy wants to basically control our elections in Pennsylvania, but he is anti-democracy.
Exactly.
And this isn't the only weird thing about him. He's got a lot of weird things going on that probably disqualify him for other reasons. I know that he is weirdly obsessed with Germany. Aiden, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, he lived in Germany and, as you said, has a very weird obsession, especially with going on Facebook Live and just like talking about German history. There's a pretty funny video of him standing in a field talking about this German statue that we have. I don't know if we want to show that real quick.
Yeah, let's take a look.
It was a gift from the Germans before the Germans launched World War I. And so it was a gift from in 1902. And it was on behalf of Kaiser Wilhelm II, his bequeath to the United States Army. It was taken down and put in storage in 1917 and 1918 when the United States declared war on Germany after they sunk many ships with Americans on board.
He's just casually laughing about Americans dying in war.
Throwing in that little aspect, yeah.
Crazy. Kennedy, is there anything else weird about him in Germany?
He likes to constantly compare things to the Holocaust. He's compared abortion and gun control to the Holocaust, and he's compared modern day cancel culture to a 1930s German mob. I don't know why he's so obsessed with Germany and making these absurd Holocaust comparisons.
Yeah, I don't think Pennsylvanians would appreciate having their fundamental rights taken away, like abortion, compared to the Holocaust. It's a little tragic.
Aside from comparing things to the Holocaust, he's actually come under fire a lot for being anti-Semitic. He paid Gab Social $5,000 for consulting, and Gab's a social media platform that's notorious for its anti-Semitic and hate speech remarks. The Tree of Life shooter in Pittsburgh, Robert Bowers, infamously went on this website right before he went into a synagogue in Pittsburgh and killed 11 people.
And Mastriano has even appropriated Jewish rituals at his events. One of the things that he said recently was, well, he said, I can't be anti-Semitic because, we had we blew a shofar at one of our events, which is obviously just, crazy bullshit.
He's just appropriating these rituals for his own political gain.
And it's something a lot of a lot of members of the Jewish community in PA have spoken out against.
And I know that he was recently photographed wearing a Confederate uniform, and I think we have the photo we can show too. Yeah, so what is actually happening here?
So this photo recently surfaced, and it's Mastriano, as you can see, in a Confederate Army uniform. This is actually a photo of staff from the Army War College, where Mastriano used to teach. He claimed it was just a history lesson, and it was just a costume, just casually a Confederate Army costume. But the Army War College actually recently came out and took the photo down and said this does not reflect their values whatsoever.
Yeah, and Mastriano has, he's made a lot of attempts to hide this far-right extremism. He's ran away from it, and, he's regularly deleting these kind of Facebook Live videos, which one of them that we just watched, some of them that are posted on his campaign pages. And this is just to prevent the press from uncovering the extent of the conspiracy theories that he believes in, the far right anti-Semitic rhetoric that he spews on all of these social media channels.
Actually, in 2002, Mastriano wrote a paper arguing that the U.S. needs to bomb the Middle East and that the United States military has a hypersensitivity to civilian deaths, and basically that the U.S. shouldn't be so sensitive and just bomb the Middle East and doesn't matter if civilians' lives are lost.
Wow. So he's a straight up warmonger to some point. And obviously, in all of these issues, education is one of the top ones for Pennsylvanians as well. Pennsylvanians, particularly Philly too, have underfunded public schools. But it sounds like Mastriano would just cut millions from education. And we actually have him on video saying that.
Oh, Mastriano's plan for education is going to be awful for Pennsylvania. Doug Mastriano wants to slash education spending. Mastriano's going to slash education.
Mastriano's going to slice, education.
There's no vote for me to slash education. And I'm going to cut education.
Wow.
So Aiden, he's just saying this over and over again himself. What's going on?
Yeah, that's a good example of what not to do as a candidate on the campaign trail, especially if you're running for governor. Basically what happened was back in February, Mastriano put out this op-ed, and in it he detailed a lot of his plans to cut this local property tax, which is actually the main source of school funding. And this plan would result in about $10,000, a $10,000 decrease per pupil, and it would affect about 2 million children across the state of Pennsylvania, as well as teachers and other school officials. And he has no plan to replace this funding. And yeah, there's been, a lot of teachers have come out and spoken against this, and it's a huge issue on the campaign right now. As you said, Kate, Pennsylvania historically has, really underfunded their public schools, and it's a major issue.
I know there was leadership from the PSEA, which is one of the top teachers unions in Pennsylvania, even came out and said that this math just doesn't add up. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, one of the top issues for Pennsylvanians is climate change and the environment. Clean water is one of the top issues that Pennsylvanians face, and it's one of the things that they're fighting for. Where does Mastriano stand on climate change, Kennedy?
So Mastriano has repeatedly denied that climate change is real. He said it was a theory based on pop science, whatever that means. He also has voted for legislation that's terrible for the environment and has claimed time and time again that human activity has nothing to do with climate change and that it's cyclical on its own.
I think we even have audio of him talking about this.
Is global warming real?
It is not. It's fake science, and it's a racket at the academic level.
It's a racket. Aiden, I can't even believe that he's saying this.
Fake science, yeah. Yeah, that's not who you want to be your governor. especially, 4 years, 8 years, whatever it may be, when the climate crisis is only going to worsen. And we really need leaders and people in place who are going to, take on these challenges, head on rather than, dodge questions or just, make up lies and spew pseudoscience.
Well, that brings us to the end of our Pennsylvania episode of the Oppo Files. Tune in next week for what I'm sure will be a very interesting discussion on Georgia, including Republicans Herschel Walker and Brian Kemp. It's definitely going to be a wild one. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Oppo Files. Be sure to subscribe to American Bridge on YouTube so you don't miss out on future episodes of the podcast. And make sure you're following American Bridge on all the social media platforms. The links will be in the description below. Thanks for joining us.
At American Bridge, we're holding Republicans accountable. Subscribe and join the fight.